All right, so this is going to be Unit 1, Section 2, Order of Operations. In your textbook, you have um, a table giving you instructions on how to solve arithmetic problems or algebraic problems using the order of operations. And you can see that there's two sort of situations if parentheses or square brackets are present. If no parentheses or square brackets are present, I'm going to add to this. I'm just going to say for the first bit here and absolute value signs. Because absolute value signs are what are called grouping symbols, just like square brackets or parentheses. And fraction bars are also grouping symbols. More about that in a short period. Now, you're given an example for evaluating exponential expressions, and it's not necessarily really clear. I'm going to do another example. Say you have minus 4 in brackets squared. This is equal to negative 4 times negative 4. The base is negative 4. The exponent is 2. That means you take the base and you multiply it by itself 2 times. Negative 4 times negative 4, using the double negative rule, that makes that plus 16. Now, let's say I have a very similar looking situation, but no brackets. There's a negative sign, and then there's a 4 squared. Well, what this means is I have the negative sign. It's just hanging out. And what's being squared is the base, the 4. The 4 is what's being operated on here. So the negative sign is just hanging out front. And the 4 is what's being squared. So this is going to be a minus 4 times 4, which is negative 16. So, using the order of operations, let's get some practice. All right, example 5, using the order of operations. So, suppose you have negative 9 plus 16 plus 5. Well, I could say, okay, well, I'm going to add these two together to start with. So this would be equal to, well, negative 9 plus 16 is 7. 7 plus 5 is 12. It turns out that you can do addition in any order. So the way the question is written, negative 9 plus 16 plus 5. You could also write 16 plus negative 9 plus 5. You could go 16 plus 5 plus negative 9. It doesn't matter how you order this. You'll always get 12 for an answer if you're adding. The order in which you do things, or the order in which you add numbers, doesn't matter. You can add numbers front to back or back to front, any order you like. You'll always get the same answer. Oh yeah, let's look at another example here. Okay, what I got? I got negative 4, and then there's a minus sign, and then a minus 11 in brackets, and then a minus sign, and 4 minus 6. What I'm going to do is, if there's a very easy double negative, I'm going to do that in one step. So I'm going to start off with the minus 4, and then I got a double negative here, right there. Minus 11 is plus 11. And I got something more complicated, and a negative sign, and then I have in brackets or in parentheses 4 minus 6. I'm going to actually evaluate this. 4 minus 6 is negative 2. Oh, look, and I got another double negative. So this is the same as minus 4 plus 11 plus 2. Well, I can add in any order, and I'm going to choose to do that. Negative 4 plus 11 is 7. 7 plus 2 is 9. So the answer is 9. All right, I've got several levels of brackets here. This next question. So I'm starting out, I've got -8 outside the outer bracket. I'm going to write down the question the way it appears and evaluate the inner bracket. 4 plus, and then what's in the other inner bracket is 7 plus -8. Don't think subtraction. What you want to do is add numbers together, and if one of them happens to have a minus sign in front of it, so what? Just think of it as a negative number and add it. So I'm adding 7 plus -8, which is -1. There's my square bracket. So now I've got a -8 outside the square bracket, and for my next step, I'm going to add 4 plus -1, which is 3. And now I'm going to multiply, because by default, the assumption here is that the -8 will be multiplied by 3, so that'll be -24. Well, the next question, oh, it's got an exponent. It's got an exponent right there. Well, let's see, how am I going to do this? Well, I'm going to start off by simplifying what I can. So I'm going to have -6. Nothing's happening to the first term. The next term in the expression, there's a -5 times -8. A negative times a negative is a positive. So that's a plus, well, 5 times 8 is 40. You can use a calculator. In fact, I want you to use a calculator to get used to how to use it. You should know your simple times tables that 5 times 8 is 40, but bigger numbers, don't bother doing double-digit multiplication. Use your calculator. And then I've got a plus sign, and then there's 3 squared. 3 squared means 3 times 3, which is 9. Well, now I can go ahead and evaluate the expression. -6 plus 40 is 34. 34 plus 9 is 43. All right, here is another expression, and this expression has a fraction bar. There's a top part, a numerator, and a denominator. The fraction bar acts as a grouping symbol. It's like the things in the bottom are in parentheses, the things in the top are in parentheses. You have to evaluate them as a group. So here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to start off by drawing the fraction bar. Up top, I've got 2 numbers in parentheses, -10 and +4. So I'm going to add those together. -10 plus 4 is -6. And then there's a double negative. -3 is +3. Now in the denominator, down in the bottom, you've got a 7, a -7, and a -2. Well, it's -7 minus 2. Really, the best way, the only way to think of this, the easiest way to think of this is to go, well, that's the same as -7 plus -2. They're in the same direction because they have the same signs. So you add the 7 and the 2 together and stick a negative sign in front and you get -9. Okay, well, what next? Well, now I can actually do some work in the top. First, I'm going to draw the fraction bar because it is a grouping symbol. It's separating the top from the bottom. -6 plus 3 is, well, -3. And in the bottom, I've got -9. Well, I have a negative divided by a negative. It makes it a positive. So this becomes 3/9. It's a fraction. I can reduce the fraction. But I will always expect you to reduce any fractions on tests. And if you're in doubt, let me show you how to use your calculator. Or ask your math teacher how to use the fraction button, the ABC button. It'll reduce any fraction to lowest terms. If you have a graphing calculator, you can enter your ratio and then have it appear in your display as a decimal. And then there's a menu under the math button that will take the decimal display and make it a fraction. So ask your instructor how to do that. But I'm going to do this manually. So I'm going to say that 3 divided by 9, well, that's the same as 3 times 1 divided by 3 times 3. Well, what I got here, I got a common factor of 3 up top and a common factor of 3 in the bottom. Anytime you have a number divided by itself, the answer is 1. So that's just a big 1. So this fraction reduces to 1/3. Oh, hey, look at this. So we have quite a complicated expression here. Well, again, there's a fraction bar, so I'm going to write down the fraction bar before I do anything. And then I'm going to have 3 times -4 is -12. Then there's a plus sign. And then you have -5 times -2. Well, a negative times a negative is a positive, so that's plus 10. In the denominator, well, we've got 2 cubed. 2 cubed is 2 times 2 times 2. Well, 2 times 2 is 4. Times another 2 is 8. So 2 cubed is 8. Minus 2. Oh, and there's a double negative. Minus 6, which makes it plus 6. Okay, now the fraction bar is a grouping symbol. I have to evaluate the top, or the numerator of the fraction, on its own, and I have to evaluate the denominator, the bottom of the fraction, on its own. So -12 plus 10 is -2. There's our fraction bar. And now, down in the basement, in our denominator, we've got 8 plus -2 is 6, plus 6 is 12. All right, now we have a negative divided by a positive, so we're going to have a negative answer. And I'm going to reduce the fraction. So I'm going to say, well, this is the same, well, this is a minus sign, and this is going to be the same as 2 times 1 over 2 times 6. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So what I'm left with is -1/6.